Welcome back to the Profit Scaling Podcast. I am here with Yigal. He is a speaker, business coach, best-selling author. He has his own podcast and he's a husband and father, but primarily he is focused on developing a legion of leaders, as he says. So thank you so much for being on. Super excited to dive in. And yeah, I'd love to get into just diving right into like, what is leadership to you? Like how'd that primarily become your focus?
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in a leadership youth group, right? Where we learned, and I was a counselor for kids and camp and the whole 9 yards. And so as I left there, I went into the business world, opened my own business with my brother, was a chain of pawn shops actually. And there was a day that we were very frustrated. We were very annoyed, high turnover, things weren't working out, no accountability. And so I turned to my brother one day and said, "Hey man, do you mind if I do some leadership training that I used to do for this youth to our management team?" And I'll never
Yeah.
forget what he said. My brother's like a big sales guy. And he goes, "Dude, just as long as my sales don't go down, do whatever you want to do." So
That
create a framework. I took my managers on this journey of leadership that they've never been on, and turned the company around. We went from like $1 million to $5 million in revenue, and it just opened my eyes to think like, if I can do this for a pawn shop, who else can I do this for? Started coaching within the pawn industry, coached over 350 business owners, and I just realized that if they learned and embraced leadership, leadership is a great magnifier of everything that they do. And so that's why I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on.
That's incredible. So interestingly enough, I'd love to actually dive into the first experience you had in the actual like youth group of like what they taught you within that, or what were they teaching?
Yeah. So it was like a leadership lesson through experience. So, for example, you go through the youth group, and when you hit 15 years old, you go through like a leadership training, how to deal with the kids, how to do activities for the kids, how to speak in public, how to be confident. And then when you're 16, they essentially give you a group of like 20 kids. So all of a sudden, every Saturday we get together from 1 to 4, and I have to plan, organize, speak, take care of 20 kids who are like 7, 8 years old. And it was like throwing me into the lion's den of leadership, right? So
Holy
learned, like I
smokes.
said,
Yeah.
how to be clear, confident, how to connect with the kids, how to allow them to have fun yet do what we needed to do, like what was the mission of the youth group. And that really helped me in my journey in business. There was like a little stint of me being a rock star in there. I was in the
Oh,
band,
interesting. Okay.
and
What'd you play? What'd you play?
so I was a singer.
No
Actually
way. Okay.
opened, we were the opening act for Woodstock 99, which is pretty cool. And so it just allowed me to learn a lot through action and not just theory, reading a book or taking a course.
Amazing. So I love that because that's primarily what I say is like if you can get it to implement, like you're gonna learn so much faster than trying to like learn from listening. So,
100%.
so when you come into company or like take me through the journey of the like pawn shop, like the pawn shop experience, like your first time, like, hey, let me just try this out. Like, bro, I got this.
Yeah.
Like what'd you start with and how'd you go about that?
So I created this framework in my mind, and we call it the Unlock the Leader framework. And I started with just, giving clarity to the team. What do you want? What's not working in your life? What's going on? What are you not hearing at work? What do you need at work? Then went to courage. And we talked about courage. When in your life were you courageous? And then connection. And we all of a sudden I've got managers crying and opening up and sharing about their fathers or these courageous moments. There was one team member who basically said, "I got my girlfriend pregnant. I was 16 years old. My father said, if you don't have an abortion, I'm going to disown you." So he said, "Absolutely not." Flew to San Diego from Mexico, just stopped talking to his parents for a while. He had nothing. And he just said, "I'm going to do this on my own with my girlfriend." And so that was very courageous of him. So we talked about courage and connection and clarity and the condition of your mind and your body. As you can tell, they all start with C. So I can remember it, by the way. And once we started to do that, I just started seeing more motivation, more inspiration, I was able to hold them accountable without anybody getting their ego hurt, without anybody getting offended. And we were like, whoa, hold up a second, this works. So then we went to the assistant managers. We did the same for them. And then we just started brewing this culture of leadership, of growth.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, a lot of industries, Jay, especially in the pawn shop industry, I work a lot in commercial cleaners and some in construction. a lot of these people get promoted with zero leadership skills. It's you've been around for a long time. I trust you. Here's the key. Here's more pay. Oh, and by the way, you need to lead 15 other people.
Right.
And so when I saw that, it made such a massive difference in the pawn shop. I thought, man, if I can make leaders out of pawnbrokers, what can I do elsewhere? Like, if I can
Yeah.
get these rough around the edges people to open up and get inspired, what else can I do? And so I just started to speak and train and talk, and it's where it is today.
Yeah, I mean that's what I can't imagine because I know especially nowadays with like small business or like trying to get good talent in the door, it's like you may have them but like they may like feel like they're lazy or like they don't show up. So how do you actually build the accountability system? Like where does that come from when they start developing the leadership skills?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like leadership is top down, starts at the ownership. The biggest problem in leadership is that ownership doesn't give enough clarity to the team. That's it.
Okay.
Like, what's the mission? What's the vision? Forget like the mission statement, the vision statement. Those
Yeah.
are important, but like, just what do you want? Like, if you're a plumber, do you want 30 trucks? Do you just want one? Right? Do you want to be in 4 counties, in 1 county? If you are a tech company, like a lot of people forget just to get clear on this is where we're going. Do you want to join in?
Yeah.
So what happens is they find people who want money, aren't clear on the vision and the
Mhm.
mission. They jump in and they're like, wait a second, I'm not about this. And they jump out. That's where the high turnover comes in. Or you just have like mediocrity settle in and they just sit there, they
Mhm.
get their paycheck, they're mediocre because they don't know what you want, how you want it, where you're going. And so they just do the least needed to not get fired, essentially.
Right. And that just like that I love culture in companies. Like that's something I've studied a lot and like try to bring in when I'm going into a company is like, hey, well, like what's the culture? Do you even have like values that you guys stand for? Or like what's so I'd love to talk a little bit about that of like let's say you come into a culture that is more hostile
Mhm.
or like or the owner may not be or like they're like, yeah, like this is good for them, but like I'm good.
Yeah. It's a process I created. I mentioned it before. It's called Unlock the Leader. My belief is that we can all grow as leaders, but we go through life locking stuff up. I'll give you an example. In 2020, Jay, was one of the toughest years of my life. Had a new baby, COVID. My father passed away. My mom had a stroke, right? It's really hard to lead from a place when all of this stuff happens. And so if I just kept on bottling it up, I lock in my leadership. I don't show transparency, what I want. I'm in my head, I'm numb, and I'm not doing what I need to do. And I'm essentially not telling the truth. And so when you unlock the leader, and this is like owner, manager, supervisor, everybody needs to be unlocked so that we can come from a place of transparency, openness, and the next stage of being able to build a culture. If you try to build a culture out of mud and dirt, you're just going to build a dirty culture.
Mm,
Right. So we got to sweep it away a little bit. We got, take off what's on the table and say, hey, what is it that's going on that's holding you back from
mhm,
actually having courageous conversations, from actually connecting from people, from actually just smiling when you get to work? So many come in with poopy faces, right? Just like they're angry, something happened, they got in a fight with their spouse. And people have problems in their lives. And I get that and I understand that. But then we bring all that into the workplace and we're like, oh, we want a better culture. That's not going to happen. So it starts with you. It starts
mhm.
with unlocking what's actually going, getting clarity on what you want, not just the company, and then taking actions to lead a better life so that you can lead a better business.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, like, I guess going a little bit more tactical when you come in, it like do you start with like, hey, everybody needs to be like on a meeting, or like what tactically do you start with?
Yeah. So I get everybody in one room. For example, I was in Houston at Ambassador Cleaning Companies, about 1,200 employees, had 48 of their managers in a room. And for 4 hours, we played games
Wow,
because I
what kind of
can,
games? Wait, wait,
yeah,
wait,
yeah.
what kind of
So,
games?
so we instill, so what I do is I instill leadership through games so that you
Okay.
have fun and it integrates into who you are. And then you walk out remembering, oh, when I did this, remember that. And then you get the concept. If I just stand there for 4 hours and talk to you, you're going to get bored. You're going to be on your cell phone. It's going to suck. And that's what happens a lot with leadership development. I
Mm,
think it's stale and it's boring, right?
mm,
So for 4 hours, we play games, we have an incredible time, and then we just connect 48 people who weren't connected before. You've got accounting connecting with sales, sales with operations, operations with admin, who've never really gotten to know each other. We sit them at different tables and they get to know each other. Who are you? Why are you here? What makes you who you are. What's a courageous thing that you did in your life? What do you want in your life? And then all of a sudden, we're just people and
Mhm.
not operations, sales, admin, and accounting. So we first connect people to people, first and foremost. And when you do that, that's where the magic starts. Then we can dive into the leadership aspects,
Mhm.
right? Of how to connect, how to have meetings, how to communicate, disc profile, all that type of stuff. But if I don't connect the team personally, forget business wise, then culture just doesn't work.
Mhm. That's so great. It's so I love your philosophy of like teaching through doing, like, and then implementing the games in it too. Cause that's like that's from the things that I've gone to, they were experiential. Like I actually remember the experience of it and then can take
Yeah.
those lessons and apply them to, to the teams I work with or like in my business itself. So I'm curious though, of I know you work a lot with like in-person companies, but how would you apply this to like remote companies or like remote first, where you're like, I have teammates like all over the place, like in the
Mhm.
Philippines and like so what would you suggest there to be able to bring the team together even though we're like remote?
Yeah. So listen, I believe that what people want are two things. They want to have fun and they want appreciation, right? Above and
Mhm.
beyond. Like they just want to enjoy life. And so if you bring, I mean, there's, for you, if you have, I have my team in the Philippines as well. You
Yep.
can have cahoots, game shows. There's so
Mm.
many things that you can tack onto Zoom today, which creates this amazing experience. We did a game one time with my team in the Philippines where we had to draw each other by just looking at the screen, right?
No
Without like
way.
looking at the person. And
Yeah.
so like we shared it, and then we shared about something nice about the person, something they need to work on. And so there's tons of things that you can do to build remote teams, but it starts with like, I just want to have fun. It's not fun to jump on Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting and just hear about the company and the metrics and the budgets and the goals and the budgets. Man, leadership is about like, how do I have these people to have a good time so they sign up with what the mission is and we move forward at an incredible pace.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's so yeah, bring it back to the fun of. I was like, no, fun and appreciation. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I like those things too, of course.
Yeah. Listen, like my team in the Philippines, and I love them, and this business wouldn't run without them, right? When I started working with remote teams,
Mm.
I started doing research on like what do they need? Like what do they really, really need? And above and beyond more pay, that's what everybody wants and needs. I was like, man, a big portion of the Philippines doesn't have health insurance.
Wow.
So I bought them health insurance. It's $400 a year. It's nothing. It's $30 a month. And
Wow.
then they were crying and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Hurricanes hit. Instead of like, why you can't work right now, hurricanes hit, blah, blah. So you just have to be appreciative. When I was in the pawn shop and somebody's father died and they had to go bury him, he's like, hey man, can I get my 2 days off and take it off of my paycheck or use, my sick days? I was like, no, dude, go for a week. Go mourn
Mm.
your father, bury and be with your family. Because when you care about the people will care about your pocketbook.
Mm.
Right? When you actually like deep down care about who they are as people, they'll care about the business making money and you achieving your dreams and your goals. If you don't care about them, they're just not going to care as much.
Right. Yeah, that's so huge because that kind of funnels into what I was just thinking of. It's like, how do you actually rally people towards that vision that like that as the owner you may have?
Yeah. Listen, I think it's understanding people. Like people want to be understood, right? They want to be heard. I'll give you a great example.
Mm.
At uh my kid's school, I
Mm.
help with some security outside, right? And there are people who just don't follow the rules, right? They make a left turn, they're not supposed to make a left turn, all this type of stuff. We've got one guy who's like, "Oh, you're not following the rules. Don't do that again." Taking pictures of them. I just walk up to him and say, "Jay, man, can I ask you a question? What about this bother? What about not making a left turn bothers you? Let's talk about it. Why can't you just make a right turn so that we're all happy, we're all safe?"
Mm.
And then they'll tell me something that's going on in their life. And I'll say, I hear you, man, but do me a favor, brother. Please, for me, just make that right turn, not the left turn. Like, Yigal, I got you, bro. I
Mm.
promise you it won't happen again. It's all like how you approach people that you get them onboarded to what you need as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's so great. I mean, it's almost like taking it's genuinely taking an interest of like, okay, well, like what's going on here? And having that courageous conversation of like, hey, something's going on, or like you may have been like slacking off. Or it's like, hey, I noticed you're not performing, and it kind of translates to there of like, hey, like what's going on first and
Yeah.
foremost.
Yeah, because they can have tons of stuff happening, right? Somebody could have been sick, something's happening with their kid. And if they can just say, like, hey, man, this is what's going on, then we can work on this together. Hey, do you need some time off?
Mm.
Hey, what resource is going to get you to do your job better? Hey, what's the goal? To make an extra $1,500 in commission, $15,000 in commission? Great. What training do you need? And so we
Mm,
just expect, like, we're going to give them a paycheck. We're going to be like, here are the rules and regulations, sign on the dotted line, and go be successful. It doesn't work that way. People need consistent training. For those of you who, watch football, baseball, basketball, these guys aren't sitting around not practicing on the off season.
mhm.
They're consistently practicing to play the game. So why shouldn't we be training and connecting with our team members to actually play the game? And that happens a lot in many different industries. They're just expected to keep playing the way they've always been playing with nothing in return.
For sure. No, I think that's so important because like as basically if you're in business, you're a leader already. So it's like regardless of what level you're at. And what would you speaking towards like that business owner, how would they go about? Because they're like, oh, I really like this. I'm listening. It's like, yes, like leadership, I'm all about it. How do you like practically go about implementing that into the company when you have like, this and that and all these priorities happening around?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm going to go back to something which is leadership is a massive responsibility. You can either have people go home, put their head on their pillow and stress because of you, or you can have people go home, put their head on the pillow and like thank God because of you, right? Like and be like, oh, I'm so happy to work with this person because yes, they hold me accountable. Yes, it's tough work, but they care about me and we've got this mission in place. So you asked the question, what's the first thing an owner can do? One, clarity. That's the number one rule I teach. What do you want for your business? If you don't know what you want, don't expect the team to know what they want. Don't expect the customers to know what they want. There's going to be confusion across the board, right? So there's a phrase I came up with years ago, which is inconsistency breeds insecurity. So if you're
Mhm.
consistent changing things all the time, and I don't know what's the mission, I'm listening to this guru and this coach, and I went to this conference, and we're going to implement and do this, and everyone's like, "Whoa, hold up a second!" Like, pump the brake is the first thing that you should do and just think about what do I want for this business? And for those of you listening, if the answer is I want to make more money, it's the wrong answer because it's what we all want to do as entrepreneurs, right? What I mean by wrong answers is just not even close to clarity,
Mhm.
right? It's like how much more money do I want to make? How big do I want to grow this? Right? What is it gonna look like? I had a pawnbroker. He wrote this 6-page vision statement. He wrote down how many times he wanted to be on the news, how many stores, how many managers, how many sales, just like to the T. And he just followed it. And every time there was a meeting, they're like, hey, let's read a portion of the vision statement. Here you go. Let's read a portion of like where we're going all together. Is everybody still on board? Awesome. Let's move forward. If you're not, let's have a conversation.
So he wrote like a 6 page like that, and like I've heard of like, yeah, just have a sentence. So what, like, do you encourage like, hey, like writing down as specifically as possible, or like how do you go about like writing down the vision and then translating that to the team?
Yeah. So I have 4 pillars of business: leadership, marketing, strategy, and then customer service. And then we write out in detail what you want. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? If there's a construction company, how and if they're doing remodels, how many remodels? What does it look like? What's the percentage profit on each one? How many construction workers do I have? How many people on site do I have holding people accountable? Do I have project managers, superintendents? It's just really putting everything out there instead of just waking up and going and waking up and going and waking up and going. And really, we all scroll through, social media and we're watching Netflix. It doesn't take a long time to write down what do I want. The biggest fear is that people don't want to write it down because they don't want to follow something in case they don't follow through. Because they're so used to not following through that it's one more tack on the failure mark, essentially.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, so like getting in depth on like on each of those things, like even as specific as possible, is like what is the profitability for
Yeah.
each of these, like each of the remodels that we may be doing. That's fantastic. So I'd love to explore more of like your company too.
Yeah.
Of like, so I know you began with the pawn shops and then you expanded from there, but like, what I guess what did you do to start to expand? Like, kind of
Yeah.
taking us back to the initial start.
So while I was a pawnbroker, I was doing this coaching
Mhm.
and I just came to an agreement with my brother, who was my partner, said, hey, bro, I love doing this. I'm going to sell my shares. We came to an agreement. We cried. We worked for 16 years together. Next,
Wow.
just like desk to desk for that many years. And he just said, like, I've been waiting for this news for 2 years. And I went out, and one of my mentors said, "Yigal, only coach pawn shops. It's what you know. Just get out there."
Mm,
So for 8 years, I had a podcast, a live event, a magazine, a newsletter. I had coaching, I had consulting, I had one-on-one, the whole nine yards. And I taught everything from marketing, social media, customer journeys, metrics, numbers, budgets, everything to run a successful pawn shop.
mm,
And then at some point, I started to realize, I was like, man, 85% of this is leadership. It just is. Like everything that we talk about is holding accountability, clarity, connecting, courageous conversations, the condition of your mind and your body. Like everything was leadership. And so I said, you know what? I'm done talking about marketing and going Facebook Live and SEO and Google reviews. I'm done. And so I just said, like, I'm going to start a leadership company. So it was actually it's funny. So my corporate name is Leaderado, which is what I go by now. My DBA for the pawn business was Pawn Leaders. It's all about leadership as well. And now I just took off the Pawn Leaders. I'm Leaderado, which means the Office of Leadership. And I primarily work with the people in the leadership positions to be able to become better leaders. And I know that this work, as I said, magnifies all the others, the budgets, the metrics, the marketing, the social media, the sales, the customer journey. When you add, um, you know what it's like, man? So for those of you who cook, I cook and I enjoy it. You add a bay leaf, which is a tiny little leaf, to
mm.
a pot of soup, and it changes the flavor significantly. That's what leadership is. It's like a dab of something small that makes a massive impact on the rest of the pot. A lot of people are scared to invest in it because, when you put in a bay leaf, it's not like overpowering. They want like $1 in, I want to get $5 out, right?
Mm,
But when you put a bay leaf, it's like, wow, that's amazing. And if you don't put it in, it's not the same soup.
right.
And so that's what leadership is to me and the companies I work with.
That's incredible. Yeah, because it sounds like instead of everything, it was like the one thing, the most leveraged thing to get the highest, the most exponential like return on the time on the investment.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Because everything can be fixed when there's great leadership. If there's bad leadership, things don't get fixed.
Wow. Okay. That's so good. I'm running through a lot of like companies in my mind of like when they had great leaders versus like if they like the poor leadership, and then it tends to, yeah, everything just tends to fall apart of like the culture gets toxic. Like I don't know, but it's amazing how just like even one person, like even at the top. So okay, so this is an interesting thing though, is like for people that may be in leadership positions, they may not be the owner though, but they do want to change the culture. How
Mhm.
do you go about that if you may be like a middle manager?
So great leadership, the best way I can describe it is uh, it's like the Care Bear stare. So, for those of you who are younger, you probably don't know what a Care Bear is. If you're older, you probably do. Care Bears were these little plush toys that had a cartoon on TV. There was a bad guy, and they'd all get together and they'd Care Bear stare, and what would stare? A heart, just so all these different little things, and they'd beat the bad guy, or they make the bad guy into like a positive, happy person, right? So, great leadership is like an incredible Care Bear stare. When you become a great leader, people start taking notice and things start changing around you little by little. And then you start creating leaders around your circle.
Mhm.
And so if you're like, man, I can't make a difference, you can. You can make a difference in your business, in your community, in your family, in your friends. So it's not just about work. When you lead all aspects of your life. So maybe you've got a toxic boss, or hopefully not, that doesn't allow you to lead there, but you can lead at church, you can lead at synagogue, you can lead at,
Mhm.
if you're coaching your son's baseball team, like whatever that is, you can become a great leader and then make a massive impact on those people in your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And totally in agreement of like, regardless of where you're entering or regardless of what your role is, like you are
Yeah.
a leader, even if it's just to your family and household. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
And,
that's so powerful.
and I have yet to hear about, so I have a program called the Leader Auto Academy where we teach leadership, mostly to managers, supervisors, that role. I have yet to hear about a manager who went to their owner and said, hey, I really want to invest in my leadership. The course is X amount of dollars. Can you help me out with this? Let's look at this. It's like, nah, why? I'm like, yeah, man, let's take a peek. Like, they're like, cool. Like, I know if you become a better leader, I make more money, I stress less. Let's make this happen. So,
No,
and if you have an owner who does say like, F that, forget this, I don't want that, you're probably working for the wrong person.
yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's just uh, that's it's yeah, it's just the more you talk about it, the more excited I get about it because it's something that like culture is huge and like team dynamics is really huge on what like just companies that I've gone on with. Like there may be like no accountability
Yeah.
and exactly what you were saying is like the top, like it comes from the top. Like the top makes the highest leverage difference there. Um, so I'd love to go into a little bit of like how you expanded like so rapidly and how you started like expanding into like I don't know, just what you've created today. Of if you could take us into like times where you've had to really like develop as a leader from a challenge or something that happened in the business.
Man, it happens all the time, right? So like the great thing about leadership is it's a daily challenge.
Mm.
So if you think about it in my marriage with my wife, there's leadership capabilities there where I make mistakes. Like I want to be very, very clear. There's no such thing as the perfect leader. I make mistakes. I fumble. I say the wrong things. I mess it up. I take the wrong actions. Everything I teach, I forget. That happens, right? There's no such thing as like a magic wand in leadership that's just going to make you perfect every single day. So let's talk about, let's go back to 2020. I think
Yeah.
that it was a very, very successful part of my business, but I had to stay in the game mentally when my father died, mom had a stroke, had a baby, like COVID, all this stuff is happening. And I'm an extreme extrovert. I can't see people, right? I can't like hang out with people, which was ridiculous to me.
Right.
So I had to go back and work on my mindset. Like, what do I want? Right? What can you do that's courageous? So I started doing these online events for industries. I started like doing things that people weren't doing yet. I hired massive speakers at a fraction of the cost because they had no idea they can charge more for a Zoom
Mhm.
speech. Like they just didn't know, right? So I was just taking courageous action, like I like to say.
Yeah.
And so that was a part of my life that was very, very tough. Another part was, I'm Jewish and October 7th happened and it would mess with my mind a lot.
Mhm.
My business took a hit because I was doing security at the school and the synagogue and making sure that everybody's okay.
Mhm.
And I just had to stay strong. And there were times where I went to go, cry in the corner. I
Mhm.
went to therapy. I got help. That's the most important thing about a leader is like when things aren't working, we need to get help right away. Like we can't wait because if we wait, the people that we're responsible for, they suffer.
Absolutely. And I think that's so powerful, especially as like a man of courage that I like obviously you are and isn't talked about enough of when there is challenges leaning on like exactly how you just said, either if it's like, a fellow brother or like someone that you really trust, a mentor, but actually reaching out for help during those times.
Yeah.
Because that would have been my next thing is like, yeah, how did you get through those times and remain to the best of your ability like in like peak performance or like continue to lead your company and your family
Yeah.
and the people you're responsible for.
So I have a therapist I go to every single week. It's my mental tune-up, just be able to talk about, things in my circle that I can't talk to the people in my circle.
Mhm.
It helps me a lot. EMDR therapy, that's what she does as well. And then I have a coach myself. Like I can't sit here and sell coaching and consulting and not have a coach myself. So I have a coach who coaches me on me, my mindset, my spirituality, staying strong, staying, grounded so that I can go out there and make that transformation, that difference for my clients. Because I can't, you know, there's another saying I created years ago, which was leading with baggage is misleading. And so if I'm going to walk in with baggage on my shoulders, I'm going to try to lead, I'm misleading the crowd. I'm misleading the people. I can't do that. I can fake it until a certain extent, but then all that garbage just seeps out, starts to smell funky, and then people see right through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you have like you have coaches, mentors, people like a circle that you can lean on too. What have been some of the most, I guess, like formative things that you've learned from like from those mentors?
One, my current mentor who's awesome, teaches
Mhm.
me just gratitude, just being grateful. He's like, and he has this saying, he says, Yigal, you live better than the kings from 100 years ago. You have a toilet that flushes, you have faucets with water, you have cars, you have planes, you have trains. Like these kings who are worth, billions of dollars in our time today had to, poop in a bucket, right? Somebody else had to clean it. And then they had to like brush your teeth from a barrel, and then they had to like go to their friend's castle in a 4-day journey in a horse and carriage. Like it's just like if you think about it, we're so much more blessed today than they were back in the day, yet we complain so much more today. And so that's what I'm currently working on is like just having that inner joy, not complaining,
Mhm.
gratitude so that I can then give to those around me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I implemented journaling in the morning and
Awesome.
like little things like that. And it's just like complete like anytime I'm just like, oh man, this is something I was going through today of like there's a business like problem that I'm trying to work through and like it won't get out of my head. I'm like, man, I just need to be grateful. Or like I just need something that's gonna get me in my mindset, like pattern break or pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
And
totally agree.
and for everybody that's different, right? So I tried the journaling thing, didn't work out for me. The cold showers just wasn't a thing. And then I found what worked for me. In Judaism, we have this ritual where we wake up, and the
Mhm.
first thing we do is we wash our hands, and then we say a prayer. And then what I say is, God, allow these hands to create, serve, and make. And so like that for me is like, all right, now I'm in this position to create, serve, and make. Like that's my mindset shift. Let's go. Like I've washed it with like a copper vessel, the way it was done in,
Mhm.
in like the Bible and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, okay, let's rock and roll, And so whatever that is for you, as long as it's the ritual that creates the mindset shift for you to be able to stay strong throughout the day, then do that. Because I don't preach like, jump in the cold bath and then journal and then this. It's like what's going to work for you that you're going to be able to do consistently, again, consistently, that's going to allow you to have that mindset to be able to move forward and win the day.
Absolutely incredible. So the thing I always like to ask is like what is I guess advice that you would give to like to a CEO to or even to someone just starting of just like what are the next things? Like what is like the most immediate like actionable thing that you can do to implement like everything we've talked about, whether it's leadership or just really anything that is the most like actionable thing of like, hey, like if you do anything, like take this away and do this.
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is sit down, grab a piece of paper, and just start writing down what's not working in my business.
Mm,
Because a lot of times we lie to ourselves and we don't tell the truth. And then when people ask us how you doing, what do people answer?
I'm good.
I'm good. Right. So
Yeah.
then we lie to ourselves again. And so you've got to be able to tell the truth in order to unlock the leader in you. That's the number one rule. Sit down. What's not working? This guy is horrible. He destroys the culture. I'm not good in this section. And then you take resources to be able to grow. Like I've got a book called Unlock the Leader,
Mm,
and I'll give a free copy to your audience. And if you go through that, the first thing is the clarity exercise. What's not working? What do you want?
mm,
And what's the step to make it happen? And then you don't have to do this all. By the way, we live in this world. You mentioned the team in the Philippines. The team in
mm.
the Philippines is a fraction of the cost of somebody here,
Yeah.
right? If you're a business owner who's doing your own bookkeeping and you're doing the marketing, and you can get a bookkeeper for 150 bucks a month these days.
Yeah.
It's insanity, right? And they're good. And so find, tell the truth,
Mm.
tell what you want, and then find the resource that can fix, you can delegate it to, or do it yourself, but make it happen. Take the action. And then always, I'm going to say this because I'm a leadership buff,
Mm.
study how to be a better leader, however that is. Through, one of my courses, through reading a book, it doesn't matter. Just start choosing to lead, and you'll see leadership start coming into your life.
Amazing. Well, Yigal, it has been a pleasure. All of his socials is going to be linked, all of like his website and his course. So thank you so much for
You're welcome.
coming. It has been an absolute pleasure.